Okay. Well, good morning. Oh, there's some attendees now. As an attendee, your microphone will be automatically muted during the meeting unless you're providing testimony. For each agenda item you wish to testify on, please click the raised hand button found on your Zoom screen. Committee staff will individually enable each testifier to unmute their microphone and turn on their camera. When recognized by the chair, please unmute your microphone before speaking and mute your microphone after you finish speaking in order to prevent audio feedback. When testifying, you'll be asked to identify yourself and the organization, if any, that you represent. Each testifier will be limited to 2 minutes of testimony per agenda item. If you cannot get internet access, you may get audio-only access by calling the Zoom phone number listed at the top of the agenda. Upon dialing the number, you'll be prompted to enter the meeting ID, which is also listed at the top of the agenda. After entering the meeting ID, you'll be asked to either enter your panelist number or wait to be admitted. You will not have a panelist number, so please wait until you're admitted into the meeting. When the chair asks for public testimony, you may indicate you want to testify by entering *9 on your phone's keypad. After entering *9, a voice prompt will let you know that the host of the meeting has been notified. When recognized by the chair, you may unmute yourself by pressing *6 on your phone. A voice prompt will let you know that you are unmuted. Once you are finished speaking, please enter *6 to mute yourself. In the event that connectivity is lost and attempts to repair the connection exceed 30 minutes, the meeting may be terminated or continued to another date and time. Please consult the webpage for updated information. For internet, telephone, and in-person access when testifying, you will be asked to identify yourself and your organization, if any, that you represent. Again, each testifier will be limited to 2 minutes of testimony per agenda item. I miss Stephen. Welcome. Welcome to the Advisory Committee on Pesticides. I'm Dexter Kishida, Deputy to the Chairperson at the Hawaii Department of Agriculture, and will be chairing this meeting. This meeting is called to order at 10:08. Thank you for your patience. I will take a roll call of the committee members present. When your name is called, please verbally acknowledge your presence. This will also serve as a roll call vote. For each subsequent vote, I will ask if there are any objections or abstentions. If there are none, then the motion will be approved on the same basis as the initial roll call. Please also state if there is anyone 18 or older in the same room as yourself. Melvin Tokuda. Here. Troy Sakihara.
Here.
Dr. Ching Lee. Here. Judson Laird.
Here.
Janet Ashman.
Here.
Steve Russo. Here. Nicholas Testa.
Here.
Great.
Nick, we need you to turn on your camera.
Yeah, you need to come, I need to confirm if they're alone.
Oh, I'm sorry. If we could go back again, right, please you're
right
here.
now?
People who are.
Troy Sakihara. You could just also mention if you are alone.
Here. Yes, I'm alone.
Dr. Ching Lee, confirm you're alone.
Here, I'm here. I'm online.
And is there anyone 18 or older in the room with you?
No, I'm myself here.
Thank you. Judson Laird.
It's just myself.
Thank you. Janet Ashman.
Just me.
Thank you. And Nicholas.
Here, just myself.
Got it. Matt Leo.
Here.
Thank you very much. And we have quorum. So as a note, the submittal for agenda item 5 in the section E under action items, the submittal was retracted, and so we will be removing that from the agenda. I will take testimony if you are here to provide testimony for that agenda item during the comments from general public on agenda items time period. So again, we'll be removing item 5, proposed amendments to the list of restricted use pesticides to clarify active ingredients, use restrictions from the agenda today. Moving on to the approval of minutes. May I have a motion to approve October 11th, 2019 minutes from the regular session? Any motion to approve? Okay,
Can I abstain, because I wasn't part of that meeting?
sure.
No motion to abstain.
So, because there's no motion, we'll move on. And so Janet, we won't need to record you as abstaining. Because we haven't had an advisory committee meeting in a bit, we're gonna ask board members if you could please just give a short introduction of yourself. So we'll go down the roll call list again. Melvin Tokuda.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Melvin Tokuda. I'm with the Department of Health Safe Drinking Water Branch. I have been, my current position is a supervisor of the monitoring and analysis section. I have been with the Department of Health for the last 16 years. Prior to my employment at the Department of Health, I was with the Department of Agriculture and the Pesticides branch. I served from 1992 to 2008. Thank you for having me aboard.
Thank you. Troy Sakihara.
Aloha, Troy Sakihara, with the DLNR Division of Aquatic Resources. I've been working with the division for roughly 19 years now. 9 of those years as an aquatic biologist, based here in Hilo. Thank you.
Dr. Ching Lee.
Hi everyone. I'm Ching Li, UH Manoa in C.F.R. I have been here for about 30 years. Our work focuses on pesticides. In the past, I have served on this advisory committee twice, but not the immediate term. So this is the 3rd time I serve on this committee. It's so delighted. Thank
you for your service. Thank you for doing this. Judson Laird.
Hi, Judson Laird. I've been on the islands for about 15 years working with pest control, mostly in the seed companies, and I now work for Mahi Pono, and I am the pest control advisor for Mahi Pono on the 12,000 acres that we have here of crops, mostly limes, little avocado, axe, and coffee.
Thank you. Janet Ashman.
Hi, I'm here representing the Hawaii Farm Bureau, and like Ching Li, I also served on this committee a long time ago. And I work on lots of different things, including pesticides for Hawaii Farm Bureau for at least 30 years. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Steve Russo.
My name is Steve Russo. I'm the RME for Rent to Kill North America here in Hawaii, as well as the branch manager at San Child Pest Solutions. I've been at the company for 7 years now, and prior to that, I worked at Department of Agriculture Pesticides Program for 8 years.
Thank you. Nicholas Testa.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Nick, and I have been in the pest control industry now for 5 years, originally with Terminix, San Wichao, and now with Aloha. This is my first time being on a committee like this. So
welcome aboard. And Matt Liam.
I'm Matt Liam. I have a company, Performance Landscapes. I started 20 years ago. 2 years ago, I sold it to Brightview. They're the largest landscape company in the country, 21,000 employees. And I'm running my branch for them. I'm also president of Landscape Industry Council Hawaii. I have an RUP. And way long ago, I had a fisheries biology degree from University of Washington. So done a few things.
Thank you. Moving on, as stated, because we're moving item 5 in the action items, if there's anyone that would like to provide testimony on that item, we're moving on to comments from the general public on agenda items. I don't see any raised hands, so we're gonna move on to action items. And I'm gonna apologize up front for absolutely killing the names of the active ingredients. And I will let the staff definitely absolve me of that, hopefully. So action item 1 is a proposed amendment to the list of state restricted use pesticides to include new active ingredient flupyradiferone. Oh, I'm sorry. Clayton Kubo. You have a,
Yeah, hey, Dexter,
Yes, sir.
like I said, yeah, I'm in a county council, I'm outside right now, and they get that agenda item going on right now.
okay. For number, you're for the proposed amendment to the rules, yeah?
Act 220. Act 220.
Okay. So you can stay out or you gotta go in to council?
I
What?
just said ask, they get testimonies going on, so I don't know how much testimony is going to get.
Okay,
Yeah. So is it possible to move the agenda item up or cannot?
Jen, can I have just do a motion to move item 6 to now? I can just move it? Okay, we can take number 6 now. Sorry, staff. So we're gonna take number 6 in action items, request to adopt amendments under Hawaii Administrative Rules, Chapter 4-66, pursuant to Section 91-3A, Hawaii Revised Statutes, to address increased civil penalties pursuant to Act 220, Session Law 2023, and conformance to the approved Hawaii State Certification Plan. So may I have a motion to approve?
I motion to approve.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. And presentation by staff. Greg Takashima.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. Greg Takashima, Acting Plant Industry Division Administrator, as well as the Pesticides Program Manager. Good morning, Advisory Committee. The Pesticides Branch respectfully requests that the Advisory Committee on Pesticides recommends to the Board of Agriculture 3 different things. First is that all incorporations of and references in Hawaii Administrative Rules, Chapter 466 to provisions in the Code of Federal Regulations be amended and updated to the current revised version and be updated in appendices B and C. Second part to that is the adoption of updated appendices A and B and a new appendix C. Third is the changes, amendments, deletions, and additions of the Hawaii Administrative Rules, Chapter 466, as noted in the full submission packet. A little bit of background on this. In 2018, the US EPA initiated an update of state certification plans for certified applicators. All state lead agencies, which the department and the Pesticides Branch is, who are designated primacy over the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act, were required to receive approval of their state certification plans via US EPA. The Pesticides Branch drafted and received approval of the Hawaii State Certification Plan by the US EPA in the 4th quarter of 2022. Changes and updates in this request to HDOA Chapter 466 are required to ensure Hawaii's pesticide laws match federal law. The changes, amendments, additions, and deletions are reflected in the Ramsayer attachment and are summarized in the submission to the committee, which is number 6 in your packet. Act 220 SLH 2023 provided updates to civil penalties related to pesticide law violations. Those changes in statute are also reflected in Appendix A of your submittals. If there are any questions, comments, or concerns related to the requested revisions of HDR Chapter 466, staff from the Pesticides Branch are available to answer any questions. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Takashima. Anyone from the public wish to testify? I believe Mr. Kubo.
I don't know if you guys can see me, but how can I turn on the video?
We don't see you, but we can hear you.
Okay. Clayton Kubo, Waimea, Kauai. How can I put this? I'm an impacted person of agriculture for many years. You guys asking me something about joining as panelists?
If you're
Okay,
able to say yes, then it may activate your video.
okay, then ask me again then. How's that?
Okay. You know what, Clayton, you can continue. We can hear you.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to say this for about 24 years now. Was my first conversation with this seed research facility on Waimea, Hawaii. So that's how long I've been involved in trying to get some meaningful regulations and increase fines of repeat offenders of pesticide violations. I think I've been working on that for about, I think now, maybe 5 years, since 2023, with getting FOIA requests and all that jazz. Had about 86 I think pages of repeat offenders. So in the 2023 legislative session, it was approved, and this is law. This is not just something that's going to be sitting on a shelf. This is law. So I'm hopeful today that the recommendations going to be coming out of the Pesticide Advisory Council, okay, that you guys going to all agree that this is law and this needs to be made ready. I can only imagine how much since 2023, since the governor had signed this act into law, how much repeat offenders that could have been, more money could have come in to the Hawaii Department of Agriculture because of this law. So at this point in time, I thank you guys so very much for hearing my testimony. And again, I'm going to reiterate, I'm assuming about 5 years, I kept on pushing and pushing and pushing. And hey, finally had fly. Law now. Law. Dexter, can you share me with the results? Because I got to get back in there. I got to do on testimony. I hope they're not done yet. But again, mahalo nui. Take care. Stay safe. Aloha.
Thank you, sir. Any other testimony from the public? Seeing none, board discussion.
Do we just speak up or do we have
Yep.
to? Okay.
Sure.
I guess my concern with raising penalties is I don't think it's an additional deterrent to either a large corporation. It's like myself, I work for a large corporation, $5,000 or $10,000. Either way, prefer not to break the law, but I don't think it provides an additional level of deterrence. I think if you're a small business, like the majority of the people who would be impacted by this, it would be the difference between a deterrent and perhaps being put out of business, which is kind of at odds with, I think, what we want to do as a state, where we want to have local food producers. If you're a small farmer making $30,000 to $70,000 a year, a $10,000 a year or a $10,000 fine for a single occurrence could be crippling. And in my experience as a former investigator, if I found one violation for people, we typically found 2 to 4. So that number could actually be quite a bit higher than $10,000. Here. So I'm not in favor of raising fines.
And
I have a question. He said that the fines go to the Department of Agriculture. Do they go directly to the Department of Agriculture?
Yeah, so the fines are allowed to be deposited into the pesticide use revolving fund. That fund has very limited uses specifically to either the pesticides branch or the industry that we do serve. So outreach, reading materials that we provide, training, stuff like that is all covered under that pesticide use revolving fund.
In last year, approximately what total fines did you guys assign?
I know the amount of NOVs that we sent out, including RUP reports were, I think it was around 82.
How many of those resulted in a fine though?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Do you know how many dollars were collected from it?
Yes, I believe that was about 25,000.
So what would the department do in additional outreach with an additional $25,000? Let's just say they doubled the fine, double the amount you brought in, just for the sake of argument. What would you do? What would your plans be as an agency for twice as much money?
Sure. So to give you folks some idea of how we use that money, we've actually implemented and drafted up and have actually purchased a bunch of flagging tape for CRB applications to coconut trees, right? When they're applied, the product is applied. Currently, there's no notification, of that application to a tree. So we realized that's something that needs to be done. That's something that the branch can use that pesticide use revolving fund to initiate. We spent about $2,000 or so to see if this pilot project works, work with industry to implement that. Some of these small projects, they may not, at least initially, have a large impact, but that is how we would, or that's a small example of how we spend some of our money.
And how would that benefit the people who are violating the law, not be violators in the future? So my envisionment of that money would be programs that would help people not violate the law, because I think that's all of our ultimate goal. So more, would there be any outreach plan for that with that money? What kind of outreach? How would it benefit the violators or people who are not violators not become violators?
Sure.
That makes sense.
So the intent, or recently, all of our staff time and payroll did get moved over to the general fund. Our education staff are provided under the general fund, but that doesn't mean that the work and the requirements, right? All the other stuff, right? Vehicles still need to get paid for. We don't get vehicles under general fund. We would purchase it through the pesticide use revolving fund. We've actually done outreach projects with C.F.R. in conjunction with C.F.R. and extension agents that provide, PPE training, WPS training, worker protection standards training, to directly affect those who may or may not have violated our laws, to reduce the occurrences. So, we're planning on contracting with IR4, the Interregional Research Program, number 4, to increase the ability and understanding and data and efficacy for minor crops. So, there's a broad range of projects and actions that the program does take to reduce potential misapplications of pesticides, while understanding that both enforcement and education are important facets of the program itself.
And is your number of notices of violation issued stable, decreasing, increasing? Like which direction is that?
Over the last 4 years that I've been the program manager, it's been relatively static. We did see a large uptick during the initiation of the RUP reporting requirements. As we would all kind of figure, right? Everybody's figuring this stuff out. But they're official actions, right? Warning notices are essentially the same level as NOVs. So there was an uptick to about 120 to 140 or so notices of violation in 2020, 2021. That did come down with, basically back and forthing with industry, figuring out, hey, this RUP stuff is important, or, this reporting requirement is important. This is the stuff that's optional on the paper, on the submittal. So, that other stuff that, is also important, is taken into account.
Yeah. Any other board discussion? Hearing none. Gonna call for a vote. Are there any objections or abstentions? I think I heard Steve
Yeah. I would
confirming
object.
object.
Yep.
Okay, then we will move to a. I'll call out your name and please let me know, yes, object, or abstain. Melvin Tokuda.
Yes.
Troy Sakihara.
Yes.
Dr. Ching Lee.
Yes.
Judson Laird.
No.
Janet Ashman.
If I can, may I just seek some clarification? Sorry to do it maybe late, but we are just following exactly what the statute requires. We're updating the regulations to match the statute that was passed 2023 legislature. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Sorry, correct.
Okay, so I'm voting yes.
Steve Russo, object. Nicholas Testa.
Can I also get some clarification on how much the fines will be raised to?
In Act 220, the fines were raised from, so for private applicators, fines were raised from $1,000 per occurrence to $5,000 per occurrence. For commercial applicators, civil penalties were increased from $5,000 to $10,000 per occurrence.
Could you also maybe just include, in case anyone doesn't know, what the difference between a private and a commercial office?
Sure. Commercial applicators are required to be essentially employed by an entity, a commercial entity. Private applicators are generally, farmers who are doing work on their own land. So that's the difference between private applicators versus commercial applicators. Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Scott.
Hi, my name is Scott Nishimoto, Program Compliance Officer with the Pesticides Branch. Just to clarify, these are maximum amounts. These are not initial administrative penalty amounts. So for commercial applicators, this is going to be a maximum penalty of $10,000 for each offense. That does not mean that for a first time respondent who receives an NOV, that does not necessarily mean that they're going to be receiving an automatic $10,000 penalty amount. And then for private applicators, there's going to be a maximum amount of $5,000. So again, if the private applicator receives a first-time NOV, that does not mean that the applicator will receive a $5,000 administrative penalty. That would be just the maximum amount.
Yeah, and also to add to that, the private applicators are required to be provided a warning notice based on their first initial notice of, or their initial violation of pesticides law. Warning notices do not carry any civil penalties to them. So there is that, essentially warning to violating our laws.
Also to clarify, every respondent who receives an NOV has the option of requesting for a hearing, and in many instances will partake in an informal settlement meeting where we have discussions with the respondent, and depending on what kind of evidence the respondent provides, the administrative penalty could be reduced.
Thank you for that. I'm gonna vote.
I'm sorry, I lost you there. What is your vote?
I'm voting no.
Jennifer, because there was additional board discussion, do I need to ask if votes have changed, or
No,
we can continue
but it'd be better if everyone discussed it upfront.
upfront?
Yeah.
In future agenda items, we'll get that out upfront. Matt Liam,
Abstain.
okay. I count 4 yeses, so this has failed. Moving on to back to agenda item number 1, please. And having to say this word all over again. So this is a request for a proposed amendment to the list of state restricted use pesticides to include new active ingredient, flupyridiferone. May I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second,
I'll second.
Esther Reichert from Pesticides Branch, present please.
Hi, I'm Esther Reichert with Hawaii Department of Agriculture Registration Specialist. So, in 2015, Bayer Crop Science submitted a product to our branch, and it contained a new active ingredient at the time, flupyridiferone. Because it was a new active ingredient, the pesticides branch conducted an initial groundwater review, which covers the basic chemical properties of the products, the estimated acres on which the product might be used in the state across all the islands, how the product is going to be used. For instance, is it going to be used as a soil treatment, foliar spray, chemication, seed treatment? And then if it fails all of that, we also do initial run with the groundwater modeling that we have in-house.
Oh, yes. Do you not take your own vote? That might have been 5.
I did not.
Then it doesn't go. Sorry,
I forgot about that. That's right.
you might gotta go back to.
Yep, we'll go
Yeah,
back.
To the 6th thing and.
Can we let Esther finish and then we'll
Yeah.
take our 6?
Okay, so attachment A, or I guess B in this case, shows the results of that internal groundwater review. Because it failed, we contracted out with University of Hawaii Water Resource Extension program to do a full groundwater review, which includes both the studies that the registrant has provided and literature review. And the results of that study concluded that this active ingredient is a possible, could be a possible leacher for our groundwater in the state of Hawaii. And so that all finished up in 2016, I believe, or 2015. What the branch decided to do at the time, there were 2 products at this point, which had this active ingredient. The branch decided to approve the 2 products as general use pesticides with a condition that a full field study review of the active ingredient would be conducted. So instead of just laboratory results or studies, the field studies that the registrant has done and literature has done in other areas, not in the state of Hawaii. This field study groundwater review would be conducted in Hawaii and test the chemical under state parameters. That study never occurred. We did get a proposal, which is your attachment D. And the estimated cost of that was $403,000. Due to the cost, I believe the branch did not accept the project and didn't move forward with it. And so this field study for the state of Hawaii was never conducted. And we are falling back to the initial full groundwater review conducted by University of Hawaii back in 2015. Since 2015, we have received a couple of other products with the active ingredient flupyridiferone. And you can see the various products under attachment F and the various statuses, whether So when these products were submitted to this branch, we told the registrant that the branch will move forward in requesting to add this active ingredient to the list of state restricted use pesticides. So the registrants either approved it, they withdrew their application, or it's still pending. For the two products that were initially approved as general use products, we have continued to renew them since the active ingredient was never added onto the list. But the registrant is aware that we are attempting to add this active ingredient onto the list. And so that is where we stand at this moment.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to testify? Seeing none, board discussion?
A question, Esther, perhaps you can answer. Tempered dust, what is the, do you know what the uses for that are?
I believe it's an indoor use, but I'm not 100% sure. I have to go back.
Just if the concern is groundwater,
Yeah,
an indoor use product isn't really, I mean, unless it's a human health and safety one, I guess that wouldn't make a lot of sense. I understand you're going by active ingredient though.
yeah, so motion 5, which is struck from the agenda, would have clarified between indoor and outdoor uses, but we have to think further as a branch on how to implement that. As far as the dealers that would have to maintain records of the product, if the label has both indoor and outdoor uses, how would we regulate that if we only make it outdoor?
And does that product have both indoor and outdoor uses?
That I do not know. I would have to get back to you.
Are any of the other products on that list indoor use products?
I don't know about all this, but the other withdrawn ones are had outdoor uses.
I do believe Altus is an outdoor product.
Any additional board discussion?
If I might get some clarification on this, so because we weren't able to get this study done that was proposed for relatively 400,000 or more or less, we're just out of abundance of caution trying to put this under restricted use. And would that restricted use change any application rates that we're using in this product?
So the application rates would not be changed, and you are correct in that because the field study wasn't conducted, we are referring back to the initial groundwater review done by Water Resource UH. Back in
It said it may or may not have an effect, just not really known.
Yeah, so the results of the full groundwater study by UH resulted in that it is a potential leacher in the state of Hawaii, and yes, out of an abundance of caution, we want to add it to the list.
Is that the point system where you get 15 points for this, 10 points for that, etc.?
So that's the one that comes after. So that one considered both the registrant's data and the literature review of that data that we had at that time.
I can confirm that it is an outdoor use product. All this is an outdoor use product.
I'm sorry, but another question. So this is approved in Hawaii for general use and you're trying to move it to the restricted use list?
Correct, yes. Because back in 2015, even though the results of the study by UH resulted in it being a potential leacher, the branch moved ahead and considered it as general use, with the caveat that a field study would be done to basically substantiate the results of the contract.
Despite that there are data on the mainland, it wasn't a
Correct.
potential leacher.
Correct.
How common is it UH study find potential leachers versus?
So the groundwater modeling system that we use is based on the soil properties of the state of Hawaii across all the islands. It's based on the soil recharge rate of the islands. It's based on And then the chemical properties of the product itself. Whereas if the study was done elsewhere, it might differ as far as the soil properties.
So how often is Hawaii finding non-leaching products when they do this test? Because don't we have more soil types than almost any other state?
Yeah. So we haven't conducted we haven't had as many new active ingredients come into the state. I've only done maybe 3 or 4, and maybe 1 or 2 have to be contracted out with UH to do a full groundwater study. So maybe 25% of the time.
That they are leaching and 75% they're not leaching.
According to the studies, right? So there's no field study for the state of Hawaii, so we can't substantiate that.
It's based off of GIS modeling, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, these little maps.
Yeah. The 25% or the 75% that she's mentioning is that I believe it's attachment B, where you kind of see, right? This is where our staff does the initial groundwater review, right? It provides us with a really broad 30,000 foot view of an active ingredient, how it'll act out in the environment. So that 75% essentially of the new active ingredients get below the 45 points based off of this.
I think one thing we gotta consider too, is since Hawaii's, the formation of Hawaii is volcanic, we have very unique geological structures just inherent in the islands, even from island to island. And then we cannot really look at the mainland data and compare it. We gotta be conscious about these structures, and it's unique to Hawaii.
Sorry, my fear is it's a very common product in the ag sector, right? It's a unique mode of action. It's a 4D, so it's got its own unique properties. It helps manage insect resistance. And my fear is that if it gets moved into the restricted class, it seems that the industry might pull away from it, leaving us more of the ones that we do have. Although I do think it's really important to make sure that if it does pose a problem for groundwater leaching, that we should definitely move it into that category. I just would, I guess, selfishly hope that we could get the studies done to prove or disprove either way. But again, my fear is that it's a product with a unique mode of action, and it's used in a lot of agriculture.
To provide a little more background in terms of financially where the program itself is, and to possibly throw this out there, like I said earlier, the program's staff moved over to general funds, right? That essentially opened up the pesticide use revolving fund for more studies such as this. This is a great example of using our pesticide use revolving fund for the stakeholders within the state. So, just to give you folks an idea, the branch itself it runs on about $3 million. So there is potential for this program, or for the funds to, now that a lot of the payroll is off of the revolving fund, to again provide these services and these studies to better understand how it actually works in our environment, rather than just on a model or in a lab.
Is there any sense of the economic impact of not using these products?
I don't think we have that.
No.
Question on well-versed in legal things, but just practically, if the concern is leaching, if a farmer with heavily clay soils with minimal percolation uses it, wouldn't there be a lower chance of leaching than if the forestry department wants to go kill invasive species up in the watershed and they want to use the chemical? Wouldn't that be more of a concern for the leaching? Because again, the different soil types and the different.
I think their mechanism for regulation though is based on the AI, not the use. Is that
Yeah, not
correct?
the particular use of the product.
So like the indoor product, that's what I was gonna ask you about the indoor
Yeah.
product, is that while there's no chance of an indoor product ground leaching, but if they're regulating it based on the AI, then
That's how the law works.
It's
You have to
kinda like-
regulate the AI, not on
Yeah.
the use of
unless-
it.
Yeah. So we do this by active ingredient and then we account for all of the federal products with that active ingredient with the assumption that any of those could come into the state. And so we look at all of the uses across all of those federal products.
All right, because I agree with him on mode of action, where we're fighting so many invasive bugs. And, you know, and we don't have a variety of modes of action to rotate through them, you know, we're developing resistance to our pesticides and it's, I do want to protect the groundwater, but I also want to protect our endangered species too, that the bugs are killing, right? So I think that's my question, if we could have done something that way.
Yeah, so this active ingredient is mainly for agricultural uses and then household crops, like homegrown garden, things like that. So there isn't any forestry uses for this active ingredient as far as conservation. is
Yeah,
concerned.
I've never heard of it, but don't want to pronounce
Yeah,
it
yeah,
either.
no, I know, you're.
Let's try it.
I have several questions if others are finished.
Sure, please.
Thank you. First, I guess I want to ask, when was the last time our UH groundwater model was reviewed and updated? Because I remember from many years ago, there were some concerns about its veracity.
Yes, so the most current model we have is the version 2014. However, we have a current contract right now that is assessing other groundwater models in addition to CLARES to determine if we need to continue with CLARES or move to a different model.
And just to specify, Claire's is what the pesticides branch currently uses to model the groundwater, the leachability.
Thank you. So this AI was approved as a general use in 2015, if I heard correctly. I'm having a little bit of problems hearing certain things. And has it been used as a general use in Hawaii since 2015 then?
I would say yes, since they just renewed the product last year, I believe, or this year.
You mentioned that Bear, the registrant, knows about this. So they participated in this approval process for general use, and are they agreeing now to the proposed restricted use?
Yes, so they were notified. I put in a copy of the notification letter, which is E, back in 2022. And they were agreeable to the state restricted use status.
Okay, I do have concerns also that even if the registrants acquiesce, making it available in Hawaii, may be a concern to them, and especially if we're the only state in the nation that restricts it. Are we? Would we be?
I do not know. I'd have to find out.
But as far as you know, then other states have it as a general use.
Personal knowledge, most likely. The only other states that I know of that are more, or maybe just as or more restricted in their groundwater reviews would be New York and California.
Not Florida?
Possibly Florida. Oh. Possibly Florida, but I'm more familiar with New York and California's.
Sure.
But I can find out.
Thank you.
is it possible for you to look that up while we're here? before we take a vote on it? Because that would be, I think, relevant.
I don't have my phone on me, so,
I might be able to.
Okay.
I am aware that
But you look at
we
net
have the
stars.
most
All-star.
active
Also-
ingredients that are restricted as far as state use restriction goes in terms of groundwater.
I don't think that's a bad thing. I just think is it relevant? This one is. Like, I think
Yeah.
each one has had its own robust
Yes,
discussion,
yeah.
and I think it's fine that. I think it's important, actually, not just fine. I think it's important that we protect our groundwater.
I'm just getting to look at some of these attachments, and I just wondered, is there anything from Bear acquiescing or agreeing to the RUP listing? Process.
I did not add it, but I do have email correspondence, so.
So for licensing, this would be like, 1A commercial, agricultural commercial applicator.
I imagine, yes,
For all the
1A
uses. Yeah,
or
1A.
Private.
private,
Or
yeah.
private.
I think it may have more than one option. I think that the issue is that when it originally came to Hawaii, they just labeled the agricultural product, and everything else has been held up since then until the groundwater studies were done. But I do believe that it is labeled for other things as well. But the one that we have on the island is an ag use product.
Thank you. Any further board discussion?
I have
Or
a question.
Stella?
So aside from the revolving funds that would potentially fund, an evaluation of leaching potential, has the department considered alternative sources of funding to get a study done? Because I think that's quite important for this.
Not for this particular AI. Legislatively, that could, and that's actually how we got the initial groundwater or the full groundwater review money basically is from a legislative bill that did get passed. So yeah, we'll definitely look into it on this next round of legislature on top of what we already, what we could budget in this current year.
Oh, so if we were to make it a restricted use product, wouldn't that study be kind of moot? I mean.
We can unrestrict it. We can take it off the list based on the study.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Good point.
It would set precedence to other active ingredients as well.
I don't, not that I'm aware of if it's been done before.
I'm sorry, Janet, did you have a question or a statement?
I think Greg just answered it, but I'm sorry I overlapped. Yeah, my question was just, has any AI been put on the RUP list and then taken off later?
Yeah, I don't believe so. But that doesn't mean that we can't. And then to further clarify, the product or all of the 12 products with flupyridifferone, on the federal register, as far as I'm aware, they are all not restricted. And this is for your folks' information, the state is one of the only states in the nation that does further review of products and actives. I think it might be the only state that provides further active review, specifically for groundwater. Groundwater is actually called out in the statute. So that's why we do and are very focused on groundwater review.
And just procedurally to walk through that process. So let's say hypothetically, we all say we think this should be a restricted product. The state puts it on the list, then conducts a groundwater survey, which turns out that, hey, it doesn't leach into ground soil. There's no reason for it to be on the list. What would the mechanics be to remove it if that were the case?
Like what triggers it coming on agenda again? Is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
what would trigger would you come, so would someone from the industry have to request it? And then if it did come on our agenda, we're an advisory committee. So then we would say, hey, we don't think this should be restricted anymore. What happens with it then in that scenario?
Sure. So we would essentially contract it out once we get the full report back to us. We would put it on the advisory committee agenda again, just like how we did today. Advisory committee would provide a recommendation or not. At that point, we would then go to the Board of Agriculture. The board ultimately has final say on whether a product comes on, comes off. And once the board makes their decision, that's when, right, when it moves back and forth off of the RUP.
And what would, let's say all that happened, what would the timeline of that be? Like, so let's say today we say restricted, state goes ahead, funds the study comes down, says no. We then have another meeting in 6 years or whatever. Whatever the next meeting is, it comes up on the agenda again. What's the turnaround? Because I can kind of understand from the industry that's using this product and needs this product. If it doesn't need to be there, it doesn't need to be there, and it's an extra burden. But if it does, then, you know, I can also see where everybody would say, yeah, our groundwater is pretty important to us.
Timelines generally, that's hard for me to predict. My assumption, I would ask Dr. Lee if he has any potential suggestions on timelines in terms of actual on-site or on the ground review of
Well, let's take the study time out of it. Just what that takes as long as it takes, but the actual, once the study is complete, from there, we get the data back, we have another meeting. How fast would that be able to be removed from the list? Because I think that's what.
I think ultimately advisory committee take it, provides recommendation, and then board, which is a month.
Okay.
Realistically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think we also have to take into account, once it goes out to the public, which is, you know, the Board of Ag, and doesn't it have to go through public hearing?
Not for the RUP list. That's
Okay.
one of the reasons why previous managers and administrations took the RUP list off of rules, is that it's no longer considered part of the rules, so we can add and subtract without that
board
public part. Yeah.
Okay, but the Board of Ag meeting is a public meeting, and there could be public concern about taking something that was listed as an RUP off of it. You know, maybe rightly, maybe not, with, you know, I mean, it's hard to educate the public on all the details of this, and, you know, why something should be removed from an RUP list once it's gotten on it. So, thank you.
Question, if it goes on the RUP list, they can use it, that they just have to have a RUP license. Does the applicator have to have a license, or does the applicator have to be supervised by a licensed?
The applicator is required to have a certified applicator license. There are allowances for non-certified applicators to apply the product, but they have to be under supervision. There's wording in our rules that allow for, you know, direct immediate contact is essentially what the wording is, unless the label has other requirements, more specific requirements.
But in this case, it wouldn't, because it's not federally restricted.
Yes,
So
correct.
it would just be the standard
RUP, yeah.
RUP direct.
Be contactable immediately.
Question for staff. What happens if this does not move forward to become an RUP, knowing that the groundwater study was not completed here, etc.?
So there are multiple options. The branch itself can ultimately deny, or I guess we would withdraw, cancel.
I guess we would withdraw it.
Yeah. The license itself, the branch will also go to board with, you know, ultimately, if you folks say no, we'll still go to board and say, hey, this is the information, you folks can make the decision. The recommendation from the advisory committee was no. you guys, ultimately, you're the board, you get to make the decision. So there is that opportunity that way as well.
And if it were to fail board, are we as either the department or the state in an increased liability situation where the license would be no longer renewed or whatever it is, or I guess, is there increased liability because it doesn't move to an RUP status?
Yes, there would be an increase in liability in terms of, essentially because the groundwater review came back as a potential leacher, right? There is a much larger potential for liability.
What do you mean it could lose its license? What does that mean?
Essentially, so the program licenses all 10,000 plus pesticides within the state. If a pesticide does not have a license, it is illegal to distribute, essentially move through any means within the state as a pesticide.
So you're saying if it doesn't move to the RUP list, it might not be allowed for general use either?
Correct.
Yeah.
Who decides that?
The law, we have a law that allows us to revoke licenses, withhold licenses, suspend.
Because
The department would decide that, administrator.
Yeah.
because the department is charged with ensuring clean water has been studied.
Environment, human health. Yeah.
Right.
If I might understand though, regardless of whether it goes RUP or not RUP, it's still, the use is the same, whether it's general or not. It's the exact same amount that you can put in the crop. I wonder, is there any way to, and I'm new to this, so forgive me, but is there any way for me to try to go to the industry members and see if they would support financially some of this groundwater study? And see if I could come back to you with like, oh, I think I can secure this much funding for it? Or is that a crazy idea?
It's pretty crazy, but we can take that for consideration. I don't think I'm gonna be able to give you an answer today, though.
Yeah, cause I don't,
Yeah,
like one person, that could be an ethics problem.
there's,
I don't.
devil's gonna be in the details and all of that. But that's similar to maybe a prior comment of us going to the legislature and asking for general funds, right? All those are potentially possible. There's just a lot of ifs. And in the timing between now and then, what I'm hearing from staff is a possibility that the license could be revoked. Is that what, I don't know if that's the right term.
Is that what you guys are actually saying you're going to do? Like, is that your,
So-
let's say today, we don't want to restrict it. It goes to the Board of Agriculture with our lack of recommendation. They say, no, they didn't recommend it. We're not restricting it. Is that the department's plan?
So right now, the two products that are active until 2026. So my assumption is we'll let those products finish out their renewal period and we will probably not renew them until we decide.
Okay.
So
Is there a chance we have another advisory meeting before that?
Yes.
the department's plan is to have this a lot more often,
Oh.
not every month, but more than once every 5 years. There is definitely a backlog that needs to start coming through for these kinds of approvals, and these discussions are necessary. So yes, I think as was mentioned earlier, the industry or industries need these tools. But also these discussions are in place to ensure that we can keep Hawaii safe. And some of the top topics that have been in the community lately don't happen on our watch as well. And so this advisory committee helps us make those decisions and figure out this path forward with staff.
Yeah, I mean, to Steve's point, I was thinking of, not wanting it to move the RUP list. If the relative risk is, acceptable and it's important to the ag industry, But then if we don't move the RUP list, it might be eliminated from use for the ag industry. So I was trying to help the ag industry, but I might be punishing them, right? So I'm trying to figure that part out of
Understand.
how the process
So
works.
coming to how you guys came to initially approving it. Can our motion here be to approve, like, let's say we wanted to recommend that it was restricted further study, and if that further study found no, no leaching potential, then to have it removed? Like, can that be our recommendation?
So
It's a
I'm
little more
sorry,
complex, I guess, but.
that.
Or
Yes,
is it only a yes?
No,
Yeah,
no,
or
no,
is it
no.
only a yes or no recommendation?
So
that we
there's
can make?
possibly a new motion to approve
Restrictions.
Like
the
a
move
conditional
to
motion.
restricted use. Pending further study.
Results of the study would determine removal from that list. So basically preemptively saying, kind of to what Janet was concerned about, I completely hear where she's coming from. If we put it restricted, and then you've got to explain to the general public why you're removing something from the restricted. Well, we thought it was dangerous, but we were wrong. Whereas in this case, we can say, okay, based on the fact that we don't know, we're saying, go ahead and be safer, but then do further study.
No.
And if that study warrants removing it, we're kind of preemptively saying you should remove it if it's not warranted. Does that make sense? How I'm
Yeah.
No,
kinda
I
crafting
understand
that?
what you're saying.
Because
Threading the
the
needle?
information, yeah, the information we have now.
Yeah,
versus
exactly.
being a
We can
potential
act on what we
leacher.
have now, but we don't have the full information, right? I completely hear what the ag industry people are saying is that, hey, this is a useful tool, and if you don't understand mode of action and insect resistance, that's an extremely important tool, that it's a different mode of action. At the same time, I guess we just don't have the full picture. So we're making an assumption based on a model, which may or may not be accurate.
We'll never have a full picture. I mean, we just
Well, if they
look
do the
at it.
study, they'll have a much better
better,
picture,
okay.
much better picture, right? I get that, and, sorry, I'm done.
Sorry, no, I want to ask a question. Am I correct in assuming that this study for this AI is going to be done? That's already a given, or not necessarily?
We don't have the money.
Yeah, we don't have funds for it at the moment.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that we can't figure out to budget it in
Or request this.
or request.
I think, personally, I think that because we don't have good information necessarily, that maybe we should have a motion that, we get the funding, make recommendation that we pursue funding. We ask Ching-Li if he's going to be the one doing the study, how long he expects it to take, and whether it can be done before the expiration, 2026, so that we don't prohibit our farmers from moving forward with this, because I still have some concerns about availability in the state if it goes RUP, if Bear decides, they're not going to supply Hawaii, if we're the only ones in the nation that are doing this. And besides that, the stigma associated with the use of RUPs. I mean, we know, probably everybody on this call and in the room knows that because of FOIA requests and because of RUP use reporting now, ag is subjected to unbelievable scrutiny and demonization by people who just want no pesticides used at all, or at least no RUPs used at all. So I think that's a serious concern if we don't have enough information. Thank you.
Sorry to slow us down, another question. Of the 10,000 pesticides you mentioned that are approved for use, how many go through leachate studies?
Like I said, it's only done when a product with a new active ingredient gets registered in the state, and there aren't that many new active ingredients that are registered.
What are the old active ingredients? Have they had a leachate study? Because I'm just wondering, if you're worried about liability of proving a new one, 10,000 approved. What, do any of those leach into the groundwater that when we just don't know about it?
So
Well, that would have been done when
that
they
would have
registered,
been
right?
when it was initially registered, but I can't tell you when the actual review of the product started. are the active ingredients per se, right?
I just, yeah, I think Janet mentioned how old is that, the model usually now you want a new model, but was there a time when
There was
some guys on the list where there was no leachate concern and?
one of the active ingredients that we're gonna go through have documents dating back to 1990s. So at least since then, they've been doing some sort of initial groundwater review for the active ingredients.
I guess, I don't, again, like, so imidacloprid has, we use a lot of it, that's had leachate studies.
I think what your question is more related to how often do we do the re-reviews?
No, I'm just, I mean, you're worried about needing another $500,000 study to prove this active, or to understand this active ingredients potential of polluting the groundwater. Did we have that kind of scrutiny for all the other active ingredients that we're using
Yeah.
now?
I could not. I couldn't.
I'm thinking
find
not.
any documents.
So if you're worried about liability for being sued for this one in the groundwater, don't you have liability for the old ones in getting into the groundwater? Because you didn't do a leachate study 30 years ago and you brought it into the state.
If you guys wanna do legal, you might wanna go for exec session. I
Oh,
don't feel
sorry.
comfortable seeing it in an open meeting.
Sure, if we'd like to proceed in that, then motion to go into executive session.
You wanna do that?
What
She's
is that?
saying,
What is that
she's
gonna?
saying is we gotta stop recording, talk about this,
Yeah.
and then go back to the meeting and say, you pause the meeting, you jump out, you have this legal
For
discussion,
legal-
and then
legal
you jump
review.
back in, because otherwise she's liable.
If this is an important-
Yeah.
Do an exec session explaining why you're gonna go into exec session to consult with counsel on this matter, I guess for, I can't pronounce it.
To answer your question.
Yes, the active ingredient,
And
which
then
is
you
in
have to have a
discussion.
2/3 vote that accept it. You have to allow public testimony before you vote on it. You vote on it, you get the 2/3 vote, then you can go to the exec session.
So maybe Matt, I say, I can answer your question, because I know some historics.
Okay.
So back in the 90s, I was part of.
Can we do this? Or do we have to go to executive? Are we in
No, no,
executive?
we just.
This is just a board discussion.
So just some first-hand information. I was part of a
Sorry.
atrazine study in 1990. I was working with C.F.R. I was working for pesticides program. But we partnered with C.F.R. or Hawaii Ag Research Corporation. And it was a C.F.R. study to look at atrazine, because atrazine was getting into the groundwater. I do not know if there was a leachate study for that product at that time, but we were pursuing active detections of atrazine getting into groundwater. Waimanalo had a problem, they had to shut down a well. So I guess there was, to just kind of give you a broad overview, there was impacts, not knowing whether there was leachate studies that happened before that we detected the impacts, but I guess we started looking heavily for all the possible leachates at that time. Yeah. And I'm sure since then and I know on Department of Health side, we're always looking impact on the drinking water. So,
And at the federal level too, before they issued the initial registration of the product, the federal government's looking at it too. So they're talking about, I think a lot of it is Hawaii specific stuff. So the federal government might have said, we don't think it leaches into groundwater. And then we bring it to Hawaii where we have like every type of soil known to man. And that one kind of soil over there in Waimanalo, for example, might be more prone to leaching this particular product than something in Kalihi or something.
No, yeah, I get that. I'm just trying to figure out how to do my job and make the right, all of what we would want to protect the groundwater, want to protect ag. And I want to protect you guys from being sued, right? But is there, we have D&O insurance to be on this portion? By the way, I guess we do, right? But anyway,
Well, it's not us taking any action, it's
Yeah,
the
it's
state that would be
fine.
sued,
Correct.
not you.
Correct.
Not the board.
And you're just making a recommendation.
Do
In
we
the
know how
end.
widespread the use of this product is, of these products? I mean,
No, because it's a general use
Yeah.
product, we can't track it.
so we have no idea if it's something like every farmer has in their storage, or like just one big company uses a lot of, or.
I don't know if any of the ag reps could comment on its usage.
Do you want me to comment on it?
Please.
I do.
I probably use, I don't know, quite a bit. Yeah, I think it's a common use product. It's a unique unit. It's a unique mode of action. It's targeted to specific pests, and so it's not a broad spectrum kill everything you have. It's used for avocados. It's used for mangoes. It's used for me. I use it on citrus a lot to try to control both suppressing thrips or mealybugs. You're allowed to use it. I use it foliarly, but there is a chemigation label that allows you to inject it, which is where the groundwater concerns would be for me more. You can use up to 28 ounces per acre per year. And so and I think a lot of the seed companies use it as well as a rotation for some of their pests. It's just used in rotation with everybody else's.
Would putting it on the RUP list,
Yeah, I'd stop using it.
personally impact you, or?
I would stop using it with the negative connotations of an RUP, and we want to try to do what's right. If it's deemed to be, and I agree, if it is an impact to the environment or to health of people, I'm all about restricting it. I'm not at all saying that we don't restrict things that are dangerous in any way. But if it becomes dangerous in that way, then my stance would be to walk away from it, which would limit my modes of action. But this is not about me, as it would limit the farmers' modes of actions of which products we could go for it. My fear is that once it becomes an RUP, I don't think it's ever getting off of that. It's too risky to say, oh yeah, once I recommend, in my opinion, and that's a very limited opinion.
I'm in agreement with everything he just said.
Any other comments before we move to either a motion to amend?
So to help,
Or,
sorry, with Matt's comment or question about when under 466.32.1, which is our rule regarding specific restricted use pesticides, subsection, where is it? 3, B3. There is a note about the specific note about groundwater review. The rules, HDOA was effectuated in July 13th of 1981, amended and compiled in December 16th, 2006, and then again amended and compiled in August of 23. So most likely 1981 is when the actual whatever level of groundwater review had started, at least in terms of rules.
So because you were at the EPA meetings, right, beginning of the year, where you got those?
Endangered Species.
Endangered Species Act, yeah.
Because they're going EPA because of the lawsuits is going back and reviewing
Everything.
how they have to do all the reviews, right? And so I guess groundwater review's been a while, but if we start requiring these $500,000 studies for this one active ingredient, does that open up that all the pesticides have to be $500,000 groundwater studies again? And I mean, unless there's a chemical reason why atrazine is more, prone, or flua, whatever, is more prone to leaching than imidacloprid or something else,
I would imagine that we would select certain active ingredients just to determine if the model is accurate. And then as funding is more available, we eventually go down through the list.
I can't count on that one.
Yeah. But initially, I think that's how I imagine it being conducted.
Is Dr. Lee available and willing to weigh in on the modeling?
Yeah, yes, Jeanette, I'm here. Thank you. A wonderful discussion. Yeah, we are doing a list of new AIs for assess the potential of leaching into groundwater. we are using another models in addition to CLEAR. We will compare with CLEAR with another models that's commonly used. We do plan after the modeling, we do plan to do verification studies. As of now, because the fund is rather limited, I do not know what the scale of the verification studies will be. I'm thinking, I've been, thinking to do adsorption constant, for example, because we have so many soil types in the state. We will collect different type of soils and to study how tight different active ingredient that adsorb on different soil particles. That will be a key parameter for the modeling assessment. And to do a better job, we do collaborate with US EPA, a modeling group. They have different models. We do have our student. We're going to have another student coming in December. We plan to send our student to EPA and work with them and see how we can run the model, have better and more accurate assessment. In addition to that, I do believe that how long does AI stay in the soil is also another key parameter. So we plan to study microbial degradation. It's in addition to chemical degradation or physical, like light, sunlight. So we plan to do microbial study as well. I believe we should be able to get initial assessment within a year from now. Some of the molecules will be able to get the initial assessment within a few months. We have a good amount of work done, but we still need to finish the rest. Collect the other parameters to run the model. Yeah, that's the update of what we are doing and plan what we're going to do in the next couple of years. For this period, this contract, I think we will finish by 26. But very likely we're going to have initial studies within a year or so. We're trying to do as fast as we could. The one of the thing is the pandemic really slowed down the process, and we had really hard time to recruit students to work on the project. That's the difficulty part. And also we have student only 2 periods, either in the springtime or fall admission period. So we cannot have student year round. It's just 2 admission period. Thank you, folks. Yeah, welcome to have questions to ask me. I'd be delighted to provide some information.
Well, you don't
committee.
mind put you on the spot, but you can always, ignore it. Because it seems like our recommendation to the board on this particular AI is going to have significant agricultural and economic potentially consequences. Do you have enough faith in the current review of the AI using the CLEAR model to have us base our recommendation on that? Or do you have questions about that model making it not as worthy for a decision like this to be made? Because what we just heard is that if it goes RUP, it probably will not be used. At least
Jenna, you have a good question. Yeah, you have a good question. To me, in the mode of action, this is as in calling neonicotinoid receptor inhibitor, I believe, similar to imidacloprid, and against sucking insects like aphids and thrips and so on. And we have not done the assessment yet, but we will, for sure, we will compare the assessment was clear and clean, at least another model that we feel. We have done the initial literature review, compared all the possible models that are available in the literature. We narrowed down to a few models that we're going to run. So in order to run all those models, we need to go through all the literature, collect all the data that enter into the model and get the results. So as of now, I do not feel confident. I don't have idea how the outcome will be. As a previous study, this I believe this is a potential leacher in the earlier study, but that's an earlier study. It's not done in this lab. So and another thing, I do think in order to move this forward, whatever the decision we collectively want to do, maybe the wording of the motion, we can discuss it and have some flexibility to allow this product get back to general use. If the results of the study is more of a support, this can be classified as general use. I think the motion, the wording of the motion, probably I would put it have some discussion here.
Sure.
Did I confuse all you folks?
No, I think you provided quite a lot of good info.
So could that be like UV half-life, microbial degradative half-life? Could those be triggers? Like if they're really long half-lives, then the leachate study is more important. But if he's finding just that it breaks down so fast anyway, that yeah.
Yes, I'm an academic guys. We do research. Of course, we want to consider the most critical parameters first. In order for chemical leach in groundwater, one of the important thing is the chemical stable enough? How long they will stay in soil? And another is how tight it interact with soil particles. You know, and of course, water solubility. In terms of adsorption constant, adsorb with soil particles and also organic matters. Those parameters we can write pretty quick, but if we're going to do actual field study, that is pretty costly. I'm thinking to do a fairly economic approach, but collect essential data and to support, to give us a data to make it a science-based decision. That's what I'm thinking. That's why I'm thinking photolysis, the light, and microbial degradation, adsorption constant that's related to soil particles and organic matter. Solubility, those data got to be available. We can get it, or we can calculate it. Calculation of water solubility should be pretty accurate.
Is that what this point system here is in this B?
So that's just like an initial, we don't go into like the photo
It's like a
hydrolysis of
questionnaire,
it.
right?
Yeah, it's sort of,
So
You
some of
know,
it is, right, the
what is-
KDs and.
yeah,
So
so the KOC is sort of like the mobility in the soil. What's the half-life? in the soil and hydrolysis and what are the uses as well, right? If it's only for fumigation, then there's more of a issue for groundwater than if it's being used, I don't know, indoors or, foliar spray or maybe in bait stations and things like that.
So I guess based on what you guys have said, what everybody's said here is, it sounds to me, let me just summarize what I've heard. So there's some potential, we need more study, you guys are gonna eliminate this product in 2026 if it's not restricted. And so I think I would like to propose that we do an amended motion requiring study, like, so.
Okay, hold on then,
Yeah.
let's. Can I get a motion
Sorry.
to amend the current proposal? Or proposed language?
I just
Did
did
you have a
that,
motion
right?
already on, at the beginning of this before discussion? You guys made a motion, right?
Correct,
So you have to-
so or just withdraw that
You either
first.
withdraw that motion and make a new motion, or you amend that motion, and that's so you don't, that's what you're gonna vote on.
Okay,
Because right now
So
you have a live motion
correct,
on, before you.
So I would move
So
to
with-
amend the initial motion,
Yeah.
is that what you're saying?
Either you move to.
Or
amend it, or the
Melvin
person who
can
made the
withdraw.
motion Can withdraw it. So
and
that
we
there's
create a
no
new motion.
Someone can make a new motion, but I think it's easier maybe to amend it,
Yeah,
but then you gotta
okay.
vote on it, and then you would vote on the amended. motion.
Okay, so
Okay,
I
so-
would like to vote on amending the initial motion here.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you.
And then I
Do
would.
you wanna let him say what the amendment is? And then
Um,
he's gonna
propose-
vote?
And then, yes, now.
Okay, so
please
the motion I
propose.
would like to propose is that we approve this for restricted use, or we recommend this become a restricted use product pending completion of the groundwater study. And should that study result in, what's the right word? Maybe Dr. Lee can help me here, but if the study does not support the data of it being a ground leacher, that it be withdrawn from the list.
I'm not sure about the wording. You're saying it should go on the list. So
Yeah.
that's not pending the completion of a study. That's going on the list. If you mean that it would go on the list if
Until this,
the study shows that it is a potential leacher, that's a different whole thing.
Yeah, punctuation in the sentence matters.
right, so I think Dr. Lee, you said that the study would be completed before 2026. Is that correct? Assuming Department of Ag.
We
got
are
money?
hoping, that's right.
Okay. Because I guess, Janet, what I'm saying is they're telling us if we don't make this motion, they're gonna eliminate this product from use altogether. So I think having it available as a restricted product until you gather more data that either supports that restriction is better than it having it completely withdrawn, or not withdrawn, but not renewed in a year and a half or 2 years.
But couldn't we look at it the opposite way? So we delay the start of the RUP listing until such time as we have evidence from Dr. Lee's lab that there is a concern, because right now I have concerns about I don't
Yeah.
necessarily have confidence in the old model.
Okay,
So,
so
and you're
what they
saying,
need us
well,
to
it's
do.
better to have RUP, not have RUP, but
Mhm.
if we go to RUP immediately without backup data and studies, we may be denying use of that product completely.
No, I understand, but
because
I'm
from
hearing
our
two
usage-
opposing motions.
Yeah,
So he has a motion.
So,
and a
okay, so
second,
we, yeah,
and she's discussing it because she doesn't agree with the motion.
yes.
You guys are not taking a vote on the amended motion, so you guys can choose not to do it.
okay,
I mean,
Got
or, I mean, I don't know, if you guys are not ready to amend it, because you're still
Right,
I,
the motion, because I'm hearing two opposite,
well, but
Two
this
opposing.
is his motion.
yeah,
right.
So he makes his
so,
motion as he wants to make his motion.
okay,
But we're just wordsmithing or making sure we understand.
yeah, so my motion is, it becomes a restricted product.
Yep.
The study is recommending to complete the study and then withdraw it if the study does not support it or maintain it. Because again, Janet, the reason I'm wording it like that is even though Dr. Lee is thinks he can complete the study, there's still the process of the Department of Ag getting the money and completing it. So if that's not all done by 2026, they're saying the product's gone anyway.
Okay, so there's a.
So that's why my motion is like that.
That's his motion to amend, and
Yeah.
to amend it into that.
Yeah.
Just confirm, are you seconding it? Is it seconded?
It hasn't,
Well, I thought I was seconding
He
that we
seconded it,
amended.
but
I
he
didn't.
seconded it
You were
before.
seconding the
the,
fact that we were having an amended.
Yeah,
motion.
we're gonna have amended
so
motion.
can I get a second to the amended motion that approves the movement of this active ingredient,
Which one?
fluparetiferone, to state RUP to become a restricted use pesticide? And if the results do not show leaching, the product will be withdrawn from the restricted use pesticide, or withdrawn as a restricted use pesticide,
That sounds like what I'm saying,
right?
yes.
There's a second?
So do I hear a second?
Are we gonna have another?
We're not-
The amended motion, you're voting to, if
this
everyone's
is-
agreeable to the amendment, so that will become the motion before you.
Right.
So this.
Right, but if
Well,
there's no other motion made, then, I mean, should there be another motion on the table at the same time so that people
No,
know?
we-
Make this-
we have
You
to-
either vote for it or not. You can deny it, and then you guys can decide not to do it, and you're back to the first motion. Or, you can discuss it, you can withdraw it, but I mean, right now you have a motion in front of you.
And waiting for a second. If there's no second, this dies.
That's true, there's no second.
I'll second it, but I'm gonna vote against it. But I wanna
Totally
discuss
fine.
it. I wanna discuss
Yeah,
it.
you
Right.
can discuss it.
Right, because now we're gonna
Okay.
be back in discussion mode. We were just deciding whether or not what we were discussing, is what we were deciding. Right. I guess, so Janet, the reason I'm crafting it like that is I don't have a lot of faith that the state will be able to get that funded and approved and done by the time that 2026 date rolls around. And so the way I see that is if they're saying they're not gonna renew this product in 2026 if it's not restricted, then you're still losing the product. At least right now, you can utilize a restricted use product as
I
is.
understand.
not have a
I understand
license.
what you're saying, but we just heard an assertion that it probably will not be used if it's an RUP. So if the bigger farmers would not be using it because of the stigma associated with RUPs, the small farmers aren't going to be using this product. So
They're
nobody's
definitely
going
still 2026 if it's withdrawn.
Yeah, but I
What
think the way you worded it, it's here to kill it. You're gonna eliminate its use now or wait till it dies.
Well, you still have the option of using it now.
Well, but
You
it-
may not choose to, but you have the
So
option.
how about this? We take the vote. If it fails, it resorts back to the original. If that fails, that's the recommendation to the board.
Yep.
What if we
I-
modify it so that it's the opposites, because 2026 is still some time away, and we are going to be having more pesticide advisory committee meetings, especially now
But
that there's.
Wouldn't
different motion.
failing the motion also achieve the same result?
You fill the motion.
Yeah.
and
The
you go back
recommendation to the
original
board,
motion.
right?
She can make her own motion
That's
to
fine.
amend the motion to the board and word it whatever she wants. You guys can vote on that. And
Okay,
if that fails,
Yeah.
then you will have the original one. If that fails, you're just gonna give the minutes to the board.
correct. And that's the recommendation.
Okay,
Well, there would be a recommendation, but
well,
the
the-
board will read why.
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
So we can move to vote on the
Yes.
amended thing.
Okay,
Recommendation.
chair votes yes. Melvin. This is for the amended motion that moves the product to restricted use. And if the results do not show groundwater leaching, the product will be withdrawn from restricted use.
Yes.
Well, that's the recommendation, right?
That's the recommendation, yeah. Yes, Troy,
Just for clarification, what is the original motion for what is the,
that'll just move to restricted use pesticide.
Yeah, which motion is to recommend,
Yeah,
what is the
to
actual?
the
recommend,
amendment is to add that the stipulation that if the results of the study suggest that it's not a leacher, that it be removed. Is that what the amendment is?
recommended for withdrawal, yeah. Yep.
Okay. Yes.
Sorry, yes. Dr. Ching Lee,
Yes.
Judson Laird,
I oppose.
Janet Ashman,
I oppose.
Steve Russo, Nicholas Testa,
Yes.
and Matt Leon.
Opposed.
So with 6 yeses,
The motion before you is the amended motion.
the motion before us is the amended motion. Now I take another,
Well, did you guys want to discuss it, or did you feel like you could vote? I don't know where you feel you are now.
I think we should move to vote because
So-
lots of discussion, different
Just to be clear,
opinions.
we just voted on approving the amendment to it,
So now
Yeah.
there is no, so the prior one, which was just a
right? Yes, straight up, yes or no?
amendment, recommendation to put it on the restricted use list has now turned into the amended motion.
With the caveat of,
To put on the list with this caveat of having the
Yes.
study, and if the study doesn't support it, that it's going to be withdrawn.
We're recommending it.
everybody
We're
understand what your
preemptively
vote is now?
These are all recommendations
Yeah.
that you're making to
Yes.
the board, because the board will make that decision.
I think functionally, what I think we're saying here is that we're saying yes, with the caveat of, we're also preemptively recommending that this study gets done and removed if it does not support that restriction. That's the difference. So if you would have voted yes to the original motion, you would, I think, still vote yes to the amended motion version. Because all
Okay.
you're doing is preemptively saying, do a study, we recommend you do a study, and we recommend that if that study doesn't support this outcome, you withdraw it.
Well,
And to withdraw, we still have to take the
are
same
we in
Yeah.
steps.
Yep.
That's required.
I think we just killed this active ingredient. Because you're gonna put it on the RUP list until the study comes. And all the users, I'm not one of them, said, as soon as it's on the RUP list, we're never gonna use it again. So we just killed it, and we're gonna burn $500,000 on a study that. I mean, whatever it proves, no one's gonna use it anyway, cause they don't want to use a chemical that was on the RUP list at a $500,000 study, which everyone's gonna scrutinize, took it back off, like I said. We thought it was dangerous, but oh, our bad. We spent $500,000 and it's not as dangerous as we thought. But in practicality, none of the users are gonna wanna touch that chemical. It's got the scarlet letter on it now,
Well, I think it's a state restricted, and as a state restricted, most people are not aware of what a state restricted product is, except for users, because it's not stamped on the label. It's not, people don't think that deeply about it, right? If they pick up the label, there's nothing to indicate a state restricted product. You would have to be aware of.
Required reporting by the state,
Yeah.
and there are groups that are actively, as we heard earlier today, involved in FOIAs, even if now you can get that information without a FOIA request. So no, there are definitely groups that are funded by DC firms that are active here in Hawaii that are looking for this all the time. So I disagree with that.
Yeah, I do too, because like the WHO study on glyphosate that listed it as dangerous as hot coffee and red meat. And look at all what that blew up into, right? Billions of dollars of lawsuits,
Yeah,
I guess-
perception is reality.
Okay, I suggest we vote on this. If it fails, we move on.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so to review one more time, the current motion on the table is to approve this product's movement to the restricted use pesticide list. And if the results do not show groundwater leaching, the product shall be recommended for withdrawal from the RUP list. So taking vote, I vote yes. Melvin,
Yes.
Troy,
Yes.
Dr. Lee,
Yes.
Judson,
No.
Janet,
No,
Steve,
Yes.
Nicholas,
No.
and Matt.
And if I knew how many board members there were, I would have not seconded that first motion, but oh well, now I know.
1, 2, 3, 4. So 5 means this motion has passed. Correct.
Yep, I know.
Okay. Thank you. 3 more
Yeah,
to
I would
go.
recommend going back to 6.
Yes, because I have
And adding your vote.
miscounted. I need to take math class, including myself. So going back to number 6, which is the request to adopt amendments under Hawaii Administrative Rules, chapter 4-66. I vote yes, so that makes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which means that motion actually has passed. Now, number 2 on the agenda.
Sorry,
I'm sorry.
I don't have to cover it. Who are the board members?
We have myself,
You're Dexter.
yep,
Yeah.
Troy, Dr. Lee, Judson, Janet, Steve, Nicholas, and Melvin, yourself.
Oh.
So 9. Yep. Okay, number 2, proposed amendments to list of state restricted use pesticides to include new active ingredient quinclorac. May I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
And second. Any second? If not, we don't take this item.
But we have to stop at 12, right?
You're right, okay. Oh, shoot, I'm sorry.
Can we take a bio break then?
Yeah, I think you're.
Okay, recess 5 minutes. Does that bring us to 12? Almost. Let's check. Calling us back. I'm gonna be taking another roll. So please, let me know if you're here. Melvin.
Here.
Troy,
Here.
Dr. Lee,
There.
Judson,
Here.
Janet.
Here, sorry.
Got it. Thought we lost
I'm
you,
here.
Steve.
Here.
Nicholas
Here.
and Matt.
Here.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to two, proposed amendment to list of, proposed amendment to list of state restricted use pesticides to include new active ingredient, quinclora. I have a motion by Melvin to approve. Can I get a second?
Is the second just allow us to talk about it?
Yes.
I second.
Okay, presentation by staff.
So this product, active ingredient, was introduced to the state in 1998 or 1999. So this is a really old, active ingredient. The whole initial groundwater review and full groundwater review conducted by UH was finished in 1999 or 2000s. And it recommended that it was also a potential leacher. We currently do not have any products with this active ingredient in the market, and the history of the product submissions are in your attachments. Ours is L, but your attachments might be labeled differently. So we had submissions in 2010 and then 2022 and 2023, but they were all withdrawn once the branch told the registrant that we were going to request for this active ingredient to be put on the list of restricted use pesticides. And so it is a systemic herbicide for use in turf, pastures, rice, bushberries, rights of ways, airports. So a variety of different sites. It can be used either as a soil treatment, fumigation, or foliar spray. And that is it as far as.
Thank you very much. Anyone from the public wishes to provide testimony? Seeing none, board discussion.
So Esther, you said there's no or limited use?
There's no state approved products with this currently in the marketplace or circulating.
So it's been here since 1998, but no one's using it?
No, the product was initially submitted in 1998. The branch never made an action on it.
Oh,
And so the product was never licensed.
not even for general use or?
No, not even.
And it's a restricted use pesticide federally or?
No, it does not. So this would be a state restricted use pesticide only. Based on the contract that was done by UH back in 2000s.
Do other states restricted?
I do not know.
Just I think for future meetings, that would be helpful information to have at our hands, so we kind of have a sense of what. So this one,
Yeah, we've had 2 submissions, or at least 3 submissions since the first initial product since the 1990s, which were all withdrawn once we told them about our request to add the active ingredient.
You're fine.
Does the department know why they were withdrawn?
Yeah, because when they submitted the products, for licensing, we noticed that this active ingredient was listed as a potential leacher and could potentially be on the list of restricted use pesticides. So we submitted to the registrants, that the state would move ahead to request to add the active ingredient. And so the registrant withdrew their application I assume, under the assumption that it would become a restricted use product.
do you have any pending registration?
No pending.
I'm confused. So the registrant agrees or doesn't agree with moving forward as a restricted use?
It was more like an abstain sort of thing. They didn't move forward with the product registration, but I don't have anything in writing. They just requested to withdraw the application. And so whether they approved or denied or had inquiries about the state of the active ingredient being on the restricted use product list, I would not know.
Maybe if staff could share why this is important to be on this agenda, considering the withdrawal. Because I think that's maybe what some of the question is, that since the applicant withdrew, why do we need to do this?
For future product applications with that active ingredient, we would hold the application until a decision was made to either put the active ingredient on the restricted use pesticide list or not. So this would be a decision for future products.
So you're saying someone couldn't get a product registered right now, because you would basically say, you have to wait until we determine whether or not this is gonna be
That is
restricted.
correct.
And then they would go, we'll talk to you in a couple of years when you figure it out.
Correct.
Versus, right, this moves through, there's a decision-making tool now.
And so these current products, you don't have any sense of whether or not they would choose to register them once it's figured out?
I have no indication. Like the last one.
Did they
was
withdraw
from-
because it was because it's pending and they don't know? Or because it's going to, they think it might be restricted and they don't want to deal with that?
I'd have to look in the language that I wrote in the email.
It's in
But I
here.
believe, yeah, I didn't put it, but I believe it was similar along to the lines of flupyridifferone, where the branch is gonna request to add the active ingredient to the state restricted use list.
And when did you say the groundwater review was, what was the date on that?
That was done in the 2000s
Said
from the
1999.
file.
Dr. Ray,
Right.
the Dr.
You
Ray
said-
one?
You said it was introduced in 1999, so the groundwater review would have been around then?
Correct, around the 2000s.
Well, not 2000s, but the early 2000s
Early
then.
2000s.
Okay, so 23 or so years ago, possibly. Again,
Yes.
I'm gonna voice my concern that we're using a model that many of us had concerns about, including Dr. Lee back then. And, you know, it really brings a lot of questions to mind about use of that without anything further in the meantime. That's number one. Number two, do you keep track of whether there is any kind of communication with agriculture about this product in particular or others on this proposed list? Whether people need this and would want this. And I mean, over the years, I've gotten plenty of calls about, hey, you know, we're waiting from farmers, local farmers saying, we know that they're using this all over the mainland without any restrictions. What's going on? We can't, you know, get these registered here. Have you had those kinds of calls on this particular AI?
No, I haven't.
Not
Well,
at the
maybe
program manager.
I mean,
I'm sorry, Janet, we lost you. Say that again?
Oh,
Not at
I mean, branch, has the branch had, is there anything in the record about people asking for this particular AI? I know, Esther, you may not have gotten the call yourself.
As far as I'm aware, the branch has not received requests from industry for this particular AI. It might be because it's been sitting on the list for 20+
Yeah.
years. And everybody's like, well, they're not gonna license it, so I'm not gonna ask about it. And
Yeah.
that's what my assumption is because it's been so long.
Thank you.
So how come it wasn't approved for 20 years?
So I came upon it when we were moving our system to a new database. And so I was re-reviewing all of the active ingredient data that we have on file. And I noticed a couple of them were listed as potential leachers, but never moved on, for whatever reason, to be on the state restricted use pesticide list. It might have been because the last list was on the rules, and so you have to go through the whole rule procedure change to
Just slip through
update
the
that,
cracks.
or, yeah.
Yeah, so the last submittal to us was so we had submittals in 2023 and 2022. But previous to that, it was 2010, which is before, yeah.
So because it was a potential leacher, you didn't approve it as general use.
Correct.
Correct.
But the first one, the flu, whatever,
That one,
wasn't a potential leacher,
it was, but the
but you
branch went
still
ahead.
approved it anyway.
So, just so we understand the outcome of what we're voting on, if we were to vote no and not recommend it, goes to the board, they decide not to restrict it, you guys are gonna continue not licensing products for that? Or are you going to then say, board's already voted on it, we can license this product? How does that work? What I'm getting at is, are we basically voting on whether or not you're gonna ever approve these products for sale in the state of Hawaii or not? Is that what we're kind of voting on? Cause if it's not restricted, you're not gonna approve it?
Essentially,
Okay.
Yeah.
So the only way someone's gonna access this product in Hawaii is if it's a restricted product. From
they
the
could
department's-
potentially repetition the department or the pesticides branch to take a look at it again, based on updated models and discussions that we've had today. And we can always reopen it.
But that requires someone to request it and
Correct.
follow that path.
Correct.
So in other words, the status quo right now, if it is not voted on, is it will continue to not be used, sold or used in Hawaii.
Correct.
And if it's voted to become restricted, at least someone has the potential to use it.
Correct.
To
That
me,
makes sense.
it looks like a turf management thing. I'd be curious to know about guys in the turf industry, the how they're dealing with this, but I think the more options, the better when it comes to managing any type of weed or pest. So if it means not having it all, I would recommend that it goes through with the restrictions. That way, at least we have another option in the toolbox.
Well,
And again, I feel like this is like a turf product from what I tried to glimpse at.
yeah, it sounds like it, but how I learned about it, with all these meetings I go to, is the vendors promote the products that are approved in Hawaii. They don't generally promote products that are pending approval. So I wouldn't even have heard of this. No one it might be a great tool for the industry, but we'll never know about it unless we go visit a sod farm in Georgia and what is this you're using? It's killing all your sedges, we won't even know that because it's not approved here. And what I've heard from the suppliers, a lot of them don't even want to try Hawaii because they think it's a difficult product. The only time, we're hearing about it now is when there's a big outcry like CRB and little fire ant. Now they're talking about some effective treatments that maybe we should try and get approved in Hawaii because it's not approved to be used here. But other than that, just the normal everyday stuff that just makes life easier. We won't hear about an unapproved product, active ingredient. So now that I know this, I'll do more homework for the next meeting, whatever it is.
And you don't have a sense of whether or not the manufacturers are not trying further registrations because they're waiting or that they're not trying because they don't want to deal with a restricted product. You don't have that sense.
I don't have that sense, no.
And they've mentioned to us, they all talk about, well, what's the sale potential in a state with only 1 million people, right? Like go through that hassle, right? And unless there's an outcry like the crisis bug or whatever weed, it's and even then they're not always sure they want to go through it. So how did you get these topics on the list for today?
So we, on our server, we have a folder full of all the active ingredients that gone through review. And so I found these documents on there and decided it was maybe time to get something started on these, right?
That makes me wonder, are these kind of like the low-hanging fruit to be put on the RUP list then? Or are you choosing, or do you intend to choose products that I know have been on hold for a very long time, waiting for groundwater review that farmers are clamoring for?
So the ones right now have already had the full groundwater review finished, right, by UH or some other university. I know there was one done by, I think, Arizona, where Dr.
Nebraska.
Nebraska, he was over there.
Dr.
Yeah.
Ray using the same model?
Yes. And so all the active ingredients that we're going through have already gone through that full groundwater review that involves both the registrant data and any literature data. And in regards to the current groundwater modeling system that uses Hawaii data.
Have you had any industry requests for this product? Any of these products?
Dimethoxin, so one of the further agenda items, yes.
But not this one.
No, that's not. This one. Okay, let's focus on just this one. So
Yeah.
you haven't had anybody from the industry ask to use this product. The registrants aren't doing it, aren't submitting it because you guys can't make up your mind about whether or not you're, well, not you guys, the state can't make up its mind whether or not it's gonna be a restricted product or not. And until it is or not, you're not registering it. And you're telling us also that if it's not, you're not registering. Right? Okay, I think I got what I need from this discussion.
Any further board discussion? If not, we will move to vote. Seeing none, are there any objections or abstentions?
I've seen. And I have to go.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then we will,
Better prepare text.
we will take a vote. Yes for me, Melvin,
Yes.
Troy,
Yes.
Dr. Lee,
Yes.
Judson,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Nicholas,
Yes.
and Matt is abstaining. Thank you very much, and the motion has passed. Number 3, and we can continue with number 3. Proposed amendment to list of state restricted use pesticides to include new active ingredient thiamethoxam.
Okay, so.
I'm sorry, hold on really quick. May I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
You. And now staff, please present.
Okay, so similar to the other active ingredients, a product with the active ingredient dimethoxam was requested to be licensed in the state back in 2012. The full groundwater review was finished in 2013, and it suggested it was a potential leacher. There are currently several active products in the state. They are mainly for indoor use or seed treatment. And there were a couple of other products for outdoor use as well. Under the assumption that staff on the branch did not know that this product was a potential leacher at the time. And so in 2022, a letter or an email was sent out to all of the registrants with active products stating that the branch would request to add this active ingredient to the list of restricted use products. Registrants either responded, did not respond, or withdrew their application if there were any pending. And then that is currently where we're at or where we stand.
Thank you. Anyone from the public wish to provide testimony? Seeing none, board discussion?
Well, your groundwater reviews got 40 points and it says less than 45. License without groundwater review.
Yeah, so this was the latest internal groundwater review that I could find. However, a full groundwater review was conducted. I don't know why, since it didn't pass the internal review. But we did receive one in 2013. And according to that full groundwater review, it was classified as a potential emitter.
Okay, so not to soapbox this, but I don't understand why, if it didn't meet the initial, you guys expended the resources on this one and not on the other product we initially discussed, that you didn't have the resources to do, but neither here nor there, decision of the past, it's just.
We did receive one request from Syngenta about allowing the use of their indoor / structural residential bait product to be continued as general use, since there is no significant potential for groundwater leaking.
So I mean, looking at this, one of your emails here is about a Raid ant gel, which would be an indoor product, I
Yes.
assume, and
With perimeter outdoor treatment.
what, of all these products that are on here, and I don't have my reading glasses, but how many of them are indoor only use products, or primarily indoor use? There's kind of a lot of products, which is why I'm asking.
Yeah, it has a wide variety of ones. So. Yeah, that I do not know.
It's somewhere in here, right there.
But since there was at least one product for indoor use, I assume there might be others.
Yeah, well, so I see Octagard on there, I see Raid on there, there's both or.
Yeah, I count 4, just based off of what I know.
So to me, it is less clear just because there is indoor uses and those are not really subject to groundwater concerns.
Unfortunately, we only have the option to restrict by active, not by EPA product number, so.
One's already an RUP. You know why that one's an RUP?
It has another
Yeah,
active
federally.
ingredient. Or it's federally, yeah, federally restricted.
Craig, can you clarify that again? Sorry, I think I'm a little dense on this. So you can only do RUP or not RUP. You can't classify it based on use or
Yeah.
how many acres or any of that.
Those are all taken into account in the initial groundwater review. The way we have classified it in the past, and that doesn't mean that we can't change it, is that we've classified a product through an active ingredient, rather than specific EPA registration numbers, right? Specific products. That is a potential, but then there are regulatory requirements that definitely have to be thought through. And you know, RUP dealer notification on, hey, these are the products, rather than a blanket this active.
Yeah, that makes it really difficult.
Yeah, it does, because I mean, the way some of these products are used are, I mean, there's not potential just based on the use. So it seems like a broad restriction to put on something that's got that kind of usage. Yeah.
Any other comments, or shall we move to a vote? Hearing none, let's move to a vote. Are there gonna be any objections or abstentions? Hearing none, the motion is approved.
Oh, I'm
Oh, I'm
sorry.
sorry. Are there any
Point of claim, are we, I heard of abstentions. I would vote against it.
abstentions or okay,
Objections,
we will
sorry.
we'll take it line by line then.
Yep.
Chair approves. Melvin,
Yes.
Troy,
Abstain.
Dr. Lee,
Yes.
Judson,
Abstain.
Janet,
I'm gonna abstain too.
Steve,
Object.
sorry, Nicholas,
Object.
so this motion has failed. Number 4, proposed amendment to list of state restricted use pesticides to include new active ingredient, and I can't even pronounce English words, ingredient and flufen. May I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
So that was never listed here. Okay, staff.
Okay, so in 2012, this product with the active ingredient pamphlufen was introduced to the state. Full groundwater review was completed in 2013. That points that it might be a potential groundwater leacher. In 2014, the product was registered because at the time, the only uses for the product was for seed treatment, and seed treatment is a low possible impact for groundwater usage. We currently have 3 registered products with this active ingredient that are currently active, and there are only 6 federally registered products. It is a fungicide. And
We're number 5, is that correct?
I'm number 4.
Okay.
Sorry, number
I was
4.
confused.
and then the current products in the market are for seed treatment uses.
I'm sorry, they're for what? I couldn't hear.
Seed treatment. They're used for seed treatment.
Thank you.
So there's only seed treatment products?
That are active in the marketplace. However, the use can be for artichoke, coyote, cassava, ginger of the federally registered products.
Right. Yeah. Cassava, ginger. So we grow cassava. Is anybody growing ginger?
Sweet potato.
Yep.
Yeah. Sweet potato.
Sweet
Okay, that would
potato
be an
yams,
important one to
yeah.
add in.
Oh, and by the way. I'm
Maybe
sorry,
one or two
Esther,
people.
are you still
No.
presenting?
Okay.
Okay, then let's open up to anyone from the public. Anyone from the public wish to, nobody's even there. Guess not. Board discussion. Now, board discussion.
So the current products though are just for seed treatment. The
Correct.
currently registered products. Are there any pending products for these other crops?
No, but there could be.
Okay, yeah, you're right. There could be.
Could be in the
Okay,
future.
but there's no requests in for those current crops at the moment. And how is this product used in those other crops, you know? Is it irrigation? Is
It's
it
only
foliar
soil
spray?
treatment for right now.
I felt like when I was reading it, it had the half-life of 433 days to reach its half-life in the water, which is kind of a little bit worrisome. It sticks around for a while. And then the extreme fish toxicity also was something that I was concerned with. If I would go back to even the thymox, the neonic that we were talking about before, if we classify this proposal 4 as a restricted use product, that just gives you the ability to say, okay, this next cassava label, I'm going to make that restricted. However, if you choose, you could also say that the seed treatment or some other use of this product that wasn't deemed, in your opinion, as a threat to the groundwater, that could stay as a general use product. Is that correct?
So we would have to amend the proposal because right now it's only for the active ingredient. So all products with that active ingredient would be straight restricted. You'd have to amend the proposal to qualify
Or I thought you guys just said earlier that you could only restrict it based on the AI.
Currently, yes.
So it's not a matter of
I think.
redefining the proposal. It's yes or no, it's all products with this AI or none. You would have to change the law, not,
See.
am I correct? Because you're restricting based on AI.
Mhm.
So if you're saying you're gonna say everything with this, doesn't matter if it's seed use or.
Ant bait, yeah.
Right, it's restricted or it's not. And to do anything other than that, you would actually have to have the legislature change the state law. So how you would restrict products by state could be,
I don't,
or
Yeah, yeah.
administrative rules,
Some-
or something
yeah.
like that.
Or-
Not this simple, yeah,
yes,
got it.
correct.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, kind of, I mean, for example, like you have bifenthrin for ag is restricted. And then bifenthrin for in uses in industry where it's not going to be a groundwater problem or a toxicity to fish, it's classified as a general use product. So I'd hope those kind of things would kind of line up with something like this right here. In the sense that it's seed treatment, I wouldn't worry so much about it if that stayed as a general use product. And then in the sense that, hey, if somebody decides to use it in an agricultural field, I could see how, yes, I'd want that one restricted. So if it's just the AI is restricted, that means the AI is restricted, then yeah, I guess I understand.
I think we need definitive clarification on this. Because if there are other AIs that are used differently, like some are restricted and some aren't, then why can't we do the same thing in this case?
Greg, you want to explain the difference?
Sure, so that's done at a federal level, right? The restriction on some uses versus other uses in products, they have the ability to federally restrict, right? Like Judson was saying, ag use versus indoor use. Unfortunately, we don't have that currently written the way it's written. For our, basically to narrow down, this product should be and has to be restricted. This product, because of its uses, is not restricted, even though they have the same AI. Yeah, basically, federal has the discretion to do that.
We don't have that
We
in our
don't.
toolkit.
Do you think we should be working on that?
It
It's-
definitely seems like a point of contention at this point.
This could be future board
Yeah.
discussion
Yeah.
or advisory committee
Advisory
discussion.
committee, yes, correct.
I would be in favor of discussing that in the future too, because I think that is extremely relevant, especially to products like this where.
Okay,
We're
but
talking about
as,
it, we're talking about restricting something based on a maybe kind of couldn't.
Yeah.
Right, not we definitely have a product coming down the line, but there might one day be a product. That seems to me to be a step too far.
so in the current paradigm where it's either it's active ingredient or none, the current. The current proposal is to list it as an RUP. Any further board discussion or can we move to vote? Hearing no other discussion, any objections or abstentions?
I'll just check.
Okay, let's do roll call.
No,
Dexter says yes, Melvin,
Yes.
Troy,
Yes.
Dr. Lee,
Yes.
Judson,
Yes.
Janet,
No,
Steve,
No.
Nicholas.
Yes.
Okay, this motion has passed.
That was four,
And-
correct?
What's that?
That was number 4.
That was number 4.
Okay.
Yes. So with that, any old business?
That
Any
anyone would
Any new business? Hearing none, can I get a vote? I'm sorry, yes.
thank you. I think I'd like to make a request, and I don't know if everybody has to vote on this, but at the next meeting, which will hopefully be soon, we can start thinking about what we need to change to make it so we can bifurcate it depending on use of the AI. It's a really important thing to do, and it's limiting our ability to have these products available. if they can be used safely, which of course we're all concerned about. So because it's going to be a really long process, not only looking at it amongst ourselves at the next meeting, hopefully, but also then sending over to Board of Ag, if it has to be legislatively amended, that's going to possibly take years. So can we please really look at this next time? And hopefully, like 2024, 5, sorry.
Point taken. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other new business?
Is there number 5?
Number 5 was retracted.
Oh, okay.
So no submittals or action on number 5, and we already voted number 6. So if no other new business, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Please.
Do I take that as Steve?
That is Steve.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Meeting is adjourned at 12:35. Thank you very much for your time and patience, folks.
So you just assumed everyone agreed with you. Check with their abstentions or objection. Just kidding.
Really? No.
What is the objection?